We're talking tech with Alex Zaharov-Reutt on today's News Talk, TNT.
Thank you for joining me for the fourth episode of Talking Tech with Alex Zaharov-Reutt. As always, there's plenty of tech news. Now it's time to speak with our first guest, who's having, unfortunately, some technical issues that we're just going to put a picture up in a moment. But it is Vinay Samuel, the CEO and founder of instant data analytics company Zertais. Vinay, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Alex. Thanks a lot. Great to be here.
Thank you. Now, Vinay, the story of how you're fundamentally disrupting the analytics, BI, business intelligence, reporting, and AI industry is very interesting, and I'm always a huge fan of positive disruption. But let's briefly start with the Zetaris elevator pitch in 30 seconds.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Alex. So basically, in most big enterprises, they've got data all over the place, data in the cloud, data in their data center. And with BI and AI really coming to prominence, if you like, or automated BI and AI. The big problem is actually getting all the data in the one place so you can do analytics that joins data to give deep insight into a business. And usually that's really costly, involves a lot of people, and can actually create a lot of errors in decision-making because the data is wrong. So the quick scoop on Zetaris is that we automate data preparation, we enable joining data in different places, and we enable high-quality, enterprise-grade data management for AI. And that's a unique proposition when you couple that with our query optimizer capability to do it at high performance and at the best cost, if you like. So that's our value proposition. We're a data platform for AI and analytics.
Now, most people in the business world are talking about data lakes, where they're grabbing all the information from all over the places that they have it and putting it into one centralized location. And so what I understand you're doing is you're decentralizing it. You're able to go to where the information is. So what was the flash of insight that caused you to see that the complexity of building these data lakes was too much and there was a much better way of doing things? I mean, in the US, there's been a lot of talk about draining the swamp. Have you drained the lake?
Absolutely. I really like that, Alex. So I might coin that, actually. We're draining the lake. Yeah. So, that's the problem, right? Companies not only have too much data to put it all in the one big lake house, it's really costly and hard to maintain. The other thing is the speed at which new data sources are found or created or come from other partner companies, or maybe there's a merger and acquisition that creates new sources. It's just impossible. Frankly, I don't see it in any organization to actually create that single view of the business or the single view of the data by bringing all the data together. What we do is we connect the data. We connect the queries that go out to actually resolve the business questions by creating what's called an AI-powered lakehouse. And behind that proposition is the ability to join data in place and query it in place. So from a business perspective or user perspective, the user still sees the data as though it's being brought together, but our software joins data in different lakes, in different databases. Perhaps it's in a massive file store like S3 or whatever, joins it as though it's being moved and stored in the one place. But actually, the data is in many different places. So we call that a networked data lakehouse. And our product is the AI-powered lakehouse. And it takes away literally months of development that you need to do if you're trying to integrate data physically. It takes away the risk of making mistakes. I say to my friends, data is like cash at the bank. Every time you move data, it's risk. You're actually creating the opportunity for someone to steal it. So if you leave your data in place where it's been created or where it's been stored, and then join it in a networked kind of way, using this new technology from Zetaris, you're actually lowering the risk of that data being stolen or being changed,
corrupted,
corrupted.
Yeah, like many of the great inventions, it sort of turns the whole idea of the way things have been done on its head, which I find to be really impressive. Now, AI was the hot topic of 2023, and it's obviously going to go supernova in 2024. What with the pending launch of GPT-5, the launch just yesterday of Google's Gemini Ultra 1.0, and Elon Musk is talking about Grok 1.5 launching, and no doubt 2.0 is coming along soon. So you've mentioned AI, it's AI driven, but how are your business customers using AI, and especially generative AI? How are you using it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a product called Gen Z, which is Generative Zetaris, right?
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that we're seeing this year and going into next year is the enterprise creating applications like ChatGPT on top of their private data. And as we all know, organizations struggle to get that private data in a shape that it can be consumed, it can be trusted, and it can be served to an AI agent or an AI capability. What we do is we actually automatically prepare enterprise data for AI. So we are the AI content store, right? That makes sure that the enterprise data that the AI agent is going to use is correct, accurate, it's in the right time sequence, and actually enables the right decisions to be made by the AI technology. Now, that all sounds really funky and great from a technical perspective. Let me give you some use cases. We are working with a large hospital group to help them use AI to improve their triage of various ailments. So one of the first projects was focusing on chest pain. So if you go into the hospital and you've got chest pain, right now the triage nurse, seeing how serious the issue of chest pain is, will have only one answer, and that is you need to see a heart surgeon. You need to see the most expensive resource in the hospital at the moment, right? With AI, we can make that decision a lot more sophisticated, and we can improve the accuracy of that diagnosis such that we can improve the outcome for the patient, get the right diagnosis. Maybe you're not having a heart attack, maybe it is a panic attack, or maybe it's some other ailment. So we're using AI to actually improve that triage process. And the way we're doing that is joining to all of the hospital systems by creating a profile of that ailment, if you like, and using the last 1,000 times someone similar to yourself has gone into the hospital and what the outcomes were to actually improve that decision. So that's one example where AI is not, it's not taking jobs away. It's not creating all the mayhem that some of the fear sayers are talking about. AI is actually improving patient outcomes, making the triage nurse a lot more effective. One other one is in banking. We're using our Zetaris Gen Z, Generative Zetaris, to enable wealth managers to ask questions of the data. So right now, the biggest problem that a good wealth manager has is that there's just too much data to make the right portfolio recommendation to their clients. And often they make mistakes because they miss something in the data. With our capability, a wealth manager with no technical experience can literally ask our AI agent by a simple natural language English question. You can say things like, from all the data that I've connected you to, do you think that this recommendation is right for this client? And the AI will come back and say, actually, you've missed this part of the data. Potentially you've missed a product disclosure statement that isn't quite, the attributes of that product isn't quite a great thing for that client. And what that's done for this wealth management group, it's improved its compliance, it's improved the accuracy of the recommendations, and given the wealth manager a lot more confidence that they've actually taken all of the data into account when making the recommendation.
That is a great example of how AI is actually a co-worker, a helper, rather than being somebody that's going to take over your job and make you redundant, which I think is, as you were saying, overblown.
Absolutely, and that's how I see it. In every industry that we're working with, we are being brought in to bring AI to a decision process to improve that decision process. Not necessarily try and take out a whole lot of jobs or stop work that's important. The business is the business. It needs to get those things done. What organizations that we're working with are trying to do is to improve their operations using AI and create much more better outcomes, strong focus on effectiveness, if you like.
Sure. Now, the next one is a bit of a curly question. I'm not sure if you ever intended Zetaris to be used in this way, but big tech censorship has obviously been a big topic over the past few years when Trump was originally elected, and there was all the claims of interference from the Twitter at the time and Facebook. And it was one of the reasons why Elon Musk bought X, although the jury is still on whether Elon really is true to his word. So what's your view on it? And how can companies use Zetaris tech to support data being free rather than being censored? Or is this something that you're not really focusing on?
Oh, look, we kind of touch on that in the sense that without technology, you can wash out bias and you can wash out, the concept of hallucination of AI, particularly LLM models, right? So we actually use AI to check AI for bias, for hallucination, for outcomes that aren't appropriate. So, this whole idea of adversarial models. So one model will detect whether a picture looks like me, and the other model will actually check, is that model right and is it doing the right thing? So with Zetaris, you can, how we connect to data in different places. We can connect to many different data sources, but also many different models to cross-check the models. And so, organizations, getting back to your question, worrying about various biases or various processes being used to influence data that we see, they can actually create models and create filters, if you like, or AI that's checking the truth of that content using Zetaris.
So what are the other big tech trends that are shaping Zetaris and your customers?
Yeah, so one big trend, funnily enough, is many of our customers are discovering that the cloud is really costly, right?
Yeah.
And that, this idea of just pay as you go, in many cases means that you're having these blowouts. You're having these bill shock moments that we saw with the telcos, right? So there's actually a trend we're seeing where data is being repatriated to the data center. And so for us, what that means is it makes our technology even more relevant because we can join to the data center, we can join to every cloud, we can join to all of the databases and files and create that single view. We give our customers the optionality to not have to always move everything to one cloud provider or to one service. They can actually create an architecture that really suits their risk posture and also their cost profile. So that repatriation to the data center is really interesting at the moment. And we're working with some large storage vendors and infrastructure vendors, and they're starting to rethink how they're approaching their customers because of this nuance where people are not necessarily one-way traffic to the cloud. They're starting to think hybrid cloud, and even what workloads should we move back because the bill was a bit surprising. The other one was actually confidential computing, where the user of data doesn't actually know how that data was derived, doesn't get access to the deeper information and the more private information that may have led to a risk score or a recommendation. So we're working with many customers where we enable them to keep their data in place and enable to serve the data using policy-based services. So we have this idea of policy-based access, which basically means if you're a resource that has rightful access to certain data, you won't be seeing other data that you don't have rightful access to, but also you may have rightful access, but you may be restricted in what you can or can't do with it. So our technology monitors the usage and the access of data from a policy perspective. So policy-based query technologies and governance and regulatory-based query technologies, I think, is something that's really going to take hold over the next few years. And that's basically embedding the logic of policy and regulatory and all of those things into the code, so that you don't have this in hindsight monitoring. You have real time. Will stop you if you're doing the wrong thing, which I think is a much better outcome for consumers and users.
Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but another great aspect to your story is that you started the business the way that so many legendary companies started, in your garage. So can you briefly tell us a bit about your journey since you've taken the job and since you arrived in Australia from the age of 7 years old?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was lucky enough to get into the data industry really early, right? I joined a great company called Teradata, and then I went through some startups. And a few years ago when I started this company, it was literally how do you get a company up out of Melbourne, Australia, at the lowest cost point and have the biggest impact. And we did actually, start in a garage in Essendon, and I self-funded it for the first few years. And it's just amazing how it's grown so quickly. And the market's moved towards needing a technology that automatically does the data preparation, the data pipelining, and is AI ready, has the governance and policy for AI. So it's incredible. It was made in Australia, and now we've taken it to America and into Southeast Asia, India, China. It's an amazing story.
Well, it's a really incredible success story, Vinay. I really do thank you for taking the time. I'm sorry we didn't get to see you, but I'm sure we'll talk again in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely, Alex. Thanks again. Amazing. Take care.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Now, last December, Julian Assange's two-day public hearing was announced for February 20 and 21 at the UK High Court to determine whether Julian will have permission to appeal or whether he'll be extradited to the United States. Now, TNT will be at the Royal Courts of Justice, broadcasting and covering the entire 2 days if required. Then TNT will broadcast from various locations throughout London. So we are TNT, lighting the fuse for freedom. Today's News Talk. We'll be back after the break.
De-weaponizing weather with reality and perspective.
The cyclone that's in the north of Australia is kind of unusual for an El Nino season. That's because we have not really had an El Nino season this year in Australia. The Southern Oscillation Index, the longest running measure of the ENSO, or El Nino, La Nina, has not cooperated at all. And we knew this was a problem way back in the Northern Hemisphere fall and our spring, because we weren't seeing a lot of typhoons. Usually when you have a big El Nino, you have a lot of typhoons going off, and we had the third lowest typhoon production on record, so something funky was going on. However, that Southern Oscillation Index is going to crash for the month of February, which means that our fall should be average in Australia. Now, I'm bringing all this up because that crash in February is linked to severe cold in the United States and Europe for February into March. And we're seeing another ferocious storm attacking Norway now. A lot of heavy rain is coming into Europe over the next week. Now, the two times that happened, it turned frigid in Europe. Same thing is going to happen. Mid-February to mid-March will be frigid in Europe. You see all these storms crashing into the United States? Well, guess what? It's going to turn frigid in the United States. In fact, for much of the United States, the worst of the winter is on the way. And just think, it all hinges on looking at the weather around Australia. Isn't that nice? Hands across the water. Australia, the States, and Europe. Kumbaya. This is TNT climate and weather watchdog meteorologist Joe Bastardi, asking you to enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you've got.
A better business tip from TNT Radio. One reason people tune in to TNT Radio is often because they're loyal to a specific show or personality. Our personalities have been a part of people's daily routine, and people continue to tune in. They trust TNT Radio and are highly engaged with the content. If you'd like more information about advertising on TNT Radio, simply fill out your details on our contact page and we'll be in touch. To find out more, go to TNTRadio.live. We're Talking Tech with Alex Zaharov-Reutt on today's News Talk, TNT.